welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. And today I have with me an amazing guest.
Hi, I'm Chuck Wendig. I have written too many books and I should probably stop. My most recent books are in April, I had released You Could Do Anything Magic Skeleton, a series of sort of monstrous motivations. And then coming out this summer, I have The Book of Accidents. And then my first middle grade, Dust and Grim, comes out in the fall.
Very cool. So Book of Accidents is quite the book. Please tell everybody what it's about.
It's a haunted house book that's not a haunted house book. A family moves home to the father's sort of ancestral home, so to speak, the place where he grew up. And it's haunted by the ghost of his father, who we also are led to believe is his abuser or was his abuser. And so as that's happening and he's beginning to question his sanity, his wife, Maddie, also begins to find that her artwork comes alive. And then their son meets a very strange friend with dark magic who may not be a friend at all. And all along the way, there's a creepy coal mine and a missing serial killer and, the Ramble Rocks folklore. And it's a lot of fun. It's just one of those books where I sort of stuck the knife in and just kept turning.
I like that you say it's a haunted house book without being a haunted house book. It's almost like a haunted people book.
It is, yeah. Haunted people, haunted world. Yeah, absolutely.
Like everybody's haunted by something different. And their son, Ollie, is an empath.
Essentially, yeah.
Essentially, which for those of us who are not aware what an empath is, how would you describe it?
He can see people's pain and he can sort of read them emotionally a little more than anybody else can. It's definitely something that for him is a bit of a more of a supernatural thing, but it's not overtly so. So there's obviously a psychic component to it. It's not just empathy. He seems like he can actually see their very real pain. Which is
it sounds just very stressful, especially in a world where I think everybody has been more stressed than usual over the last few years, pandemic, pre-pandemic in general. I feel like we're always in a state of heightened sort of emotion, or at least
Absolutely.
I know I am. And other people are in a state of heightened emotion. So the idea of being a young child or a teenager and being able to feel all of that is terrifying in and of itself.
Yes. And especially initially in the book, he is not handling it well. So that's definitely part of the arc for him in that book, is how he handles it, and is it even real? And other people, how do they react to it, and so forth.
So where did the whole story come from?
Well, I grew up in a haunted house, and so I really wanted to write about that. But I also wanted to write, about all of the things that come into, sort of the haunted house mythology, and also the haunted house as metaphor. People being haunted not just by ghosts, but by what does it mean to be haunted by a ghost? What did that ghost represent? Generational trauma and cycles of abuse. Being haunted by all those things, to me, was an interesting place to start for a story, and to put a family at the heart of evil in some way, sort of cataclysmic change for them. I wanted to write about that, and then to make it like a lot of my books are about big apocalypses. I kind of wanted to write about a little apocalypse. What is it like when it's an apocalypse for a family? What does that mean for them? It was an interesting playground, so to speak.
I like that you say little apocalypse, especially like I'm currently at the point of recording, because this will go out a little bit later in the summer, 3 episodes into Loki.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And the idea of apocalypses being a more than a one event, depending on who it's for, came up, and I very much enjoy that concept. And I think,
and then apocalypse is like shelter too, is an interesting idea. Like they're using it as shelter, so it's kind of a fascinating idea.
Oh, totally. I'm really enjoying that. But yeah, you bring up a really good point about, like we're all in our worlds, and there's the events that happen around us that are sort of, can feel very oppressive. Like things that either are happening in the world, bringing an end to the world as we know it, threatening the world as we know it for the future. And then there's the things that happen within families.
Yep.
Which is, as you said, in its own way, an apocalypse.
And then to see how the pain in this family sort of resonates out and becomes a larger pain that a supernatural kind of pain was the goal there.
Yeah. So, question: did you grow up in New Hope, Pennsylvania?
My address was New Hope. Technically, I grew up in, I think, Buckingham. But yes.
That's a really interesting area. I actually had been there a few times when I was in college.
Oh, nice.
And I still know somebody who lives there. And I think, man, what does she do? She's like, it's like, I can't describe it other than like, she's like a historical botanist almost.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like she works with plants that have like long history. It to me, I'm probably describing it really poorly, and if she's listening to this, I am sorry, Anna. You have to yell at me to understand your job better. But that's just a really, I really loved that area. Were you thinking about it in general when you were writing this book?
Yeah, I do, because this whole area, I mean, obviously this is a thing with kind of the Northeast in general, given its history, but this area in particular is sort of pickled in weird folklore. And I grew up, centrally located to some of it. I mean, I lived on a place called Buckingham Mountain, which it was a gravity hill, and there was also a place where you could race the devil at the top of it. And then there were secret caves where these, British loyalist robbers had hidden treasure. And so it's just like one of those things where I wanted to play with all of that and see if I could make some interesting hay of all of the folklore that goes on here.
I love that. And I love it because I think I'm a big fan of urban legends in general. And the Gravity Hill, that's like one of those places where it's like an illusion and it looks like things are rolling up hills. And
you're supposed to like turn your car off and the lights off and then let it wait. And then something's supposed to pull or push your car up. And then sometimes you're supposed to theoretically see the handprints where someone, either a dead child or a ghost, had pushed your car.
There's always something like that in local folklore. Like here on Long Island, there's bridges that supposedly have history in the death of people, and we actually have a road called Mount Misery Road.
Do you really?
We do, but something really did happen there. Like a hospital really burned down there.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Why did you why name it something? Why name it Mount Misery?
Yeah, seriously.
Like you're just asking for trouble. But I love that. And I love, because everybody's aware of certain widespread urban legends that may take a different flavor depending on where they are. But I like the whole microcosm of folklore and urban legends that are just sort of sprung from the area and what happened there.
Yeah, they're not like global. They don't even have to be known beyond your individual area. Like we had one, it was like a Fritz come out and play, and you had to you said that, and this like ghost light would bounce along. It was supposed to be like the severed head of a boy. He's holding his own head. You're just like, okay, I mean, all right. Just very specific, very unique. It was only one road. You would go down one road to see it. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember I spent some time in Delaware, and there was like all of this strange lore about this road with this house that supposedly the trees leaned away from.
Oh, yeah.
You ask anybody else, like they would no, it's not have no clue. But if you ask people who are in that area, of course they know what that is.
Right.
So tell us about your middle grade book. This is your first middle grade book?
First middle grade, yeah, written young adult, but not middle grade. So it's about a young girl who inherits a funeral home for monsters, but she must share the inheritance with a brother she's never met. And chaos, of course, ensues as she learns about the inheritance that she did not know she had.
That's really cool. And that one is out this fall, I believe.
Yeah, October 6th, 6th, something like that.
Cool. How did you find it difficult to sort of make the leap to middle grade?
No, I don't think so. I tried to write a book that was sort of funny and not also treating kids like kids, if that makes sense. Like trying to treat them like the miniature people that they are. And like my son is he just turned 10, so it's like I really wanted to write a book that was in his wheelhouse in terms of both his reading level and the subject matter that he might kind of dig. And so no, I didn't find it difficult at all. Once you, I think, have kids, you start to sort of operate on that level and be able to tell stories catered to them and keyed into their sort of weird little wavelengths.
I think so. And when I did children's librarianship for a bit, and I love middle grade because I feel like there were authors back when I was younger who did kind of understand what you were just talking about, but not as many. And I feel like we have more and more authors coming out writing the books that they that they not only that they needed as children, because they were like, they felt like the books either talked down to them or just were not really accessible to them emotionally, but also because I think as the generations go on, a lot of us are still in touch with the things we loved back then. I have 6-year-old twins, and throughout the pandemic, my husband and I have been playing a version of Dungeons and Dragons for kids called Hero Kids. And we've all just sort of bonded with the fact that my husband and I are gamers, and my kids are very big on make-believe, and they'd always been asking about Dungeons and Dragons. So we found a way to sort of connect in that way. And I don't feel much different when we're playing and we're storytelling in that way than I would when I'm playing with my friends. Obviously, the content is a little bit
dialed down, sure.
Right. Yeah. But it's great. And I feel like it's such, I feel like people don't really take into account just how perceptive children are.
Oh, totally.
It's such a great way to, just like open up the idea of storytelling and critical thinking with them. And so I really appreciate just all of the middle grade that's coming out, that's dealing with either sensitive topics or just bringing these crazy fantasy horror worlds to kids, because this is what I think a lot of us needed back in those days.
Absolutely. I sort of would have loved it, and I wrote a book that I think I would have liked. It's funny and scary and weird and got a lot of heart and a lot of horror in it too at the same time. And I think my kid would sort of dig it, and hopefully other people's kids dig it too. But at the end of the day, I can't control that part. I can only sort of control, that I'm happy with what I wrote.
Well, I think everybody is going to be excited about it. I know I am, because I've always got my radar up for good middle grade books to recommend. And so another thing I want to ask you, because we are Syosset, the hometown of Padme Amidala, Natalie Portman herself.
Sure.
You've written in the Star Wars universe.
I have, yeah.
Tell us about that.
It was cool. It was definitely, I was lucky to do it. And it was neat to be able to sort of have my own little piece of Star Wars real estate, just my little postage stamp that's kind of mine and will always be mine. So it was a fun process and experiment. I don't really like to do a lot of tie-in material, not because I don't like tie-ins or I don't think writers should do that, just that it's complicated. You don't really own it, and it's hard to make, income off of it or a living. You really have to churn and burn kind of. But for stuff that I really love, and I mean, I've been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid, it was definitely as much a delight to do as anything.
Yeah, that's true. It's there's sort of like that little double-edged. So in a way, you're writing official fan fiction,
Yeah.
but then with licensing and everything, it gets complicated as far
Oh,
as
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
It totally gets complicated.
as far as that goes. So is there anything else fun you're working on that you'd like to tell us about?
I wrote a book called Wanderers, excuse me. A big, giant, sort of squirrely, pandemic-ish novel.
I had my hands on it recently. It is quite big, but
It's very big. It's like 280,000 words, I think, 800 some pages. So that came out before the pandemic, unfortunately, apparently predicting the pandemic. So I apologize for that. I maybe made that happen. I didn't mean to. But that book did very well. And I always said I would do a sequel if the readership asked for it and if sales made it make sense. And all that did happen. And I had an idea. So I'm currently working on the sequel called Wayward, and I'm like 250,000 words into it. So I'm just about done. I think another week or 10 days, and I'll be out of the woods on this one.
very nice. Yeah, there've been I think there were a lot of pandemic books that hit right before the pandemic.
It's like we knew, yeah. We could tell something was coming.
I mean, I just told my husband, I think we have to have more sit down dinners with the boys as a family. But then like we were having every meal sit down.
Yeah, suddenly it was all that way. Yeah.
So you've also worked in RPGs?
True. Yeah, I wrote for 10 years. Actually, I worked in the pen and paper game industry, mostly for a company called White Wolf. I was a freelancer. So never an employee, but always sort of kind of a mercenary gun for hire, so to speak, for whatever line they needed me for. I did a little bit of editing, but a lot of writing, both in terms of fiction and game rules and all the things. Then I did some other stuff like Gamma World and so on and so forth. So yeah, it was fun. Very different.
How did you get into that? And I mean, I guess, like, needless to say, you were an RPG player when you were younger.
Oh yes, and that was really why I got into it, because I was still gaming even in my early 20s. At that point I was gaming and I wanted to keep gaming, but I sort of felt like maybe you needed to monetize this in some way, maybe make it make sense, and so I did apply to write for a game called Hunter the Reckoning for White Wolf. And I wrote them a little sort of pretentious essay about monster hunting and internal and external loci of fear and some kind of weird high-minded horror stuff. And they totally liked it. And next thing I knew, I was writing one thing. And then as other writers, sometimes if a writer on a book would kind of tank their assignment or come in late on it, they would need someone to come in quick and fix it. And so that would be me initially. And then after that, it just kind of picked up steam and kept on going.
That's really awesome. I'm a gamer myself, as are many of the librarians here.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've got quite the nerdy crew.
That's great.
Here at Syosset. And it's funny that you say about still being a gamer and wanting to continue. I mean, I got started late. I didn't get started until I was in my 20s.
Okay, nice. That's good.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, and I mentioned this on another interview recently, when I was a kid in the 80s, like first when I probably would have started playing D&D, there were like two things. Like, number one, all of the talk shows said it was bad, and like there was like a movie with Tom Hanks.
I know, some satanic, yeah,
super official, like, because it's got Tom Hanks in it. What was it, Mazes and Monsters or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
I wasn't from a family that was like crazy into that, but like, like when you see people who are supposed to speak with authority say that something is going to lead you down a dark path.
Yeah, it was totally part of the satanic panic of the 80s.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you tend to be scared of it, and I was scared of everything as a kid, so I stayed away from it. But then when I got older, I couldn't find anybody to play with, even though I was interested in it. And then the lore wasn't so much like it was satanic as it was uncool.
Yeah, it was just for nerds.
It's for nerds, and who wants to be a nerd?
Yeah.
Now everybody's, got like some foot in a fandom.
Yeah, well, that's why I put it in Book of Accidents. I have like kids at a lunch table during lunch at school playing D&D, and it was like not viewed necessarily as, just a nerdy thing. Like they're doing it out in the open. It's not like a secret kind of like,
yeah, exactly.
We don't want to get beaten up, to do it. So
exactly, out of the basements, I mean, come on, like we're in a world now where some people would watch like sports, and a lot of us watch our favorite authors, celebrities, voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons and other role playing. Like that's a whole form of media.
It is the entire thing of entertainment. It's cool.
So Book of Accidents is out in late July.
July 20th. Yep.
And your middle grade book, once again, is out. Just one more time. I have
first week of October. I think it's the 5th or the 6th. Over that Tuesday.
Dustin Grimm is out
Dustin Grimm.
in October. And we look forward to just more from you, because I know I'm always following what you're doing. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you. So once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page. Our guest was
Chuck Wendig.
And we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.